Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Cafiero. Today we are going to work in Module 3, Lesson 17. We're still in the same standard of NBT 2.6. So today we're going to represent and solve division problems that require decomposing a remainder in the tens. So we're still going to be using our place value chart that we started in Lesson 16, but we are going to practice decomposing from tens into ones. So the materials you'll need for today's lesson are pencil, paper, and your math workbook. Go ahead and pause the video now to gather these materials. Okay, now that we have our materials, let's go ahead and get started. So in our last lesson, we used a place value chart to help us solve 2-digit by 1-digit division. Today, we are going to use the same strategy with larger remainders and having to regroup those remainders. So I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like with a couple examples, and we're also going to do number 1 in the problem set together. So you can see here that we have two problems, 3 ones divided by 2 and 3 tens divided by 2. So I am going to take this and put it in my place value chart. I've got my tens, I've got my ones. So it says I have 3 ones. 1, 2, 3. And we know that the larger number is called our dividend. And our smaller number tells us how many groups we have, and it is our divisor. So we need to take these 3 ones and divide it into 2 equal groups. So I'm going to go ahead and create 2 groups here, and I'm going to label them 1 and 2. And I'm going to take these place value dots, and I'm going to pretend they're candy, and I'm going to pass them out to my 2 friends. So I'm going to take the first candy here, give it to my first friend, my second, give it to my second friend. Now I want to make sure that they both have equal amounts, and I still have 1 left over. So for my quotient, Q, I'm going to see how many each person has. Each person has 1 piece of candy. See, I'm looking at group 1, that's 1 friend, they have 1 candy. So our quotient is 1. And then we still had 1 left over that we were not able to put in any group. So our quotient is 1 and our remainder is 1. Now we're going to move into having 3 tens divided by 2. So I'm going to do the same thing with my place value chart, tens and ones, and I have 3 tens, 1, 2, 3. And it tells me that I need to split these 3 tens into 2 equal groups. So I'm going to create 2 groups here, 1, 2, and I'm going to split it down the middle because I have tens and ones in this case. So I'm going to start with my tens column, and you can see it just says we have 3 tens, no ones. That's why there's nothing in the ones column. So I'm going to take this first 10 here, and I'm going to give it to my first friend. And I'm going to take my second 10 and give it to my second friend. Now I still have 1 10 left over. Your remainder is not going to be 10 because 10 is divisible by 2. You can take 10, divide it by 2, and get an equal number. So we're going to take this 10 and we're going to decompose it into 10 ones. And we are going to pass these candies out to our friends. So it's just like what we did in our last lesson. Each time you give one away, you cross it out. Just like that. And once everyone has equal amounts, we see, do we have any left over in the ones? No. So our remainder is going to be 0 because we don't have anything left over. We decomposed that 10 into 10 ones, and we were able to divide those 10 ones equally between our 2 friends. So now we need to figure out what our quotient is. So let's look at just our first friend here, our number 1 friend. How we have 1 10. And then you count how many ones you have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 ones. And when we write that in standard form, that's regular number form, we write it just like this. We have a 1 in the tens column and a 5 in the ones column. So our quotient is 15 with a remainder of 0. Now we're going to do this again with another example so you know exactly what it looks like every single time we decompose from the tens to the ones place. All right, so next we have 4 ones divided by 3. So I've got my tens in my ones column. I've got 4 ones, and I've got 3 groups. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to take these ones and divide it amongst 3 friends until everyone has an equal amount. So 1 here, cross that out, 1 here, cross that out, 1 here, cross that out. I have 1 left over. I can't put it in a group because if I do that, then not everyone will have an equal amount. So that means our remainder is 1. And then we look in one of our groups, just one of them. You can be the first one, the second one, or third, doesn't matter. And you see how many place value dots you have in that group. We only have 1. So our quotient is 1 and our remainder is 1. Now we're going to look at the one on the right-hand side. Now it tells you have 4 tens, 2, 3, 4, and 2 ones. And you need to split this into 3 equal groups. So I'm going to just draw some lines here to create 1, 2, 3 equal groups. So I'm going to start with my tens, and I am going to divide however many tens we have amongst those 3 equal groups. So I'm going to take my first one here, put it in the 1, put that in the 2, put that in the 3, and I have 1 left over. So we are going to take that 1 10 and convert it into 10 ones. All right, so now we have our 2 ones that we started with plus the 10 ones that we had to decompose from 1 10. So now we're going to take all these 12 ones and divide them amongst our 3 groups. So it's just like what we did last time. Each time you put a dot in a group, cross it out so you don't use it again. And you just want to make sure that everyone has an equal number. All right. So, do we have any left over here in the ones column? We do not. So our remainder is going to be 0. And we are going to look here at this first row with the 1 on it to tell us what our quotient is. We've got 1 10 and we've got 4 ones. And when we write that in standard form, we're going to have 14. So what we can do when we want to check our work is we take our quotient, in this case 14, and we multiply it by our divisor, which in this case is 3. And when you multiply those 2 numbers together, you should end up with 42, 4 tens and 2 ones. On the left-hand side, if you wanted to check your work, you take your quotient, which is 1, multiply it by your divisor, which in this case is 3, and then you'll have 3. But that's not what we started with. The reason is when you have a remainder, you have to make sure you add that back in when you check your work so you get your total that you started with. So with 3 plus 1 would give us 4 ones. That's what we started with, so we know that's our correct answer. All right, the last example that we're going to do together before we move on to the problem set looks like this. It's 8 tens and 4 ones. Tens and ones. So I'm going to draw my 8 tens and my 4 ones. Now, my divisor is 3, which means I'm trying to split this into 3 equal groups. So I'm going to create 3 groups here along the bottom. And I'm going to start with my tens place with dividing these place value dots amongst the 3 groups. Just make sure that as you do it, you cross them out so you don't use them twice. All right, I have 2 left over, but I've got 3 groups. I cannot take these tens and put them in these 3 groups. So I'm going to take these 2 tens and decompose them into 20 ones. So I've already got 4 here. So I'm going to add 20 dots here. All right, There's my 20 plus the 4 that were already there. So we have 24 ones. So we are then going to take these 24 ones and divide them amongst these 3 groups. So when you do that, it's going to look like this. Oops. There we go. And you're just going to keep going until you've used all your dots. And here's our last ones. All right, put that there. All right, so then we see that we don't have any ones remaining. We were able to divide them all equally amongst the 3 groups. So our remainder here is 0. And we are going to look at our first line here to determine what our answer is. So we've got 2 10s and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ones. And when you write that in standard form, you're going to get 28. So our quotient is 28 with a remainder of 0. The last thing we're going to do is number 1 in the problem set together. You can see just like in lesson 16, I've crossed some things out. We are not going to relate it to long division because we are not doing long division in 4th grade. So I crossed out that direction. I put a big X through the long division symbol and everything because we're not doing any of that. What we are going to do is we are going to solve 5 divided by 2. And we are going to start with putting our 5 ones in our place value chart. Then we are going to create 2 groups and label them 1, 2. And we are going to take these 5 ones and divide them as equally as we can between these 2 groups. Okay, and we have 1 left over. Now I can't put that 1 in either of our groups because if I do, it'll make the groups uneven. So that means we have a remainder of 1. Now to find our quotient, we just have to look at either group 1 or group 2 and see how many dots are just in that one group. So you can see in group 1 here, there are 2 dots, which means our quotient is 2 with a remainder of 1. Now over here, we're going to check our work. We're going to take our quotient of 2 and multiply it by our divisor, which was 2, and we're going to get 4. But 4 and 5 aren't the same thing. So what are we missing? We're missing our remainder. You have to add your remainder back in to see if you're going to get back to your original number. And it does. 5 here and 5 here. So this is what it should look like whenever you complete your problem set and whenever you're working out your exit ticket. Please make sure that this is what your answers look like. Quotient equals, remainder equals. Once again, I should not see any decimal points in any of your answers. We have not covered decimals. I should not see them at all. This is how you should be solving these problems using this strategy so you understand how to use it. For your problem set, you're going to be in your math workbook on pages 75 and 76. Your must-dos are 2, 3, and 4. Your can-dos are 5 and 6. Once you finish your problem set, please make sure that you do complete your exit ticket. It is in the assignments tab under the general channel. Make sure that you check your work and you read the directions carefully before you click submit. If you have any questions, let me know in your private channel.